Choose Your Legends is officially out right now. I already talked a bit about the kits of our new heroes, but we got the full update out now. We got more information about some things like super boons, as well as restrictions on the new inheritable skills, so if you're thinking about using those, you may want to pay attention. I have also gotten each of the new heroes myself, so I'll try to relay anything I've picked up on from testing them out. Now, the CYL5 banner is called Keepers of Faith and features the winners of this year's Choose Your Legends competition. In second place we have Brave Eirika and Brave Marth. The first place winners are Brave Marianne and Brave Gatekeeper, making his first appearance in Faith. As usual, every player is going to get one free pick. No matter what, you get to choose someone for free, and we do have 5 first summon tickets from Forging Bonds as well. In addition, the 40 summon spark can be used up to 4 times on this banner. You can only pick each hero 1 time, but if you summon 160 times, you'll get a copy of all 4 winners. First up, we have Brave Eirika. When Ephraim won, he dressed up as the twins' father, King Fado, but Eirika's gonna take the outfit of Ephraim and even wins a lance. She's also got a ponytail this time. Ephraim supposedly taught Eirika some of his spear techniques, and it's also a plausible reason why Eirika's starting weapon, or Lord weapon in Sacred Stones, is the rapier, since she does a stabbing motion with it. Now as a blue unit, Brave Eirika is a Lance Cavalier. She has 39 HP, 40 attack, 42 speed, 20 defense, and 24 resistance. She will have attack, speed, and res super boons. Eirika is very offensive and has a really high base attack stat for how much speed she has. She's a bit similar to the 2 Freyas. As mentioned in my last video, CYL5 appears to be bringing the start of Generation 6 base stat totals. Eirika's going to have 173 BST, and her Gen 5 BST for melee cavaliers was around 167 to 168. In terms of ult skills, she's going to have Luna and attack and speed Menace. Menace skills are great for melee cavs because they perfectly fit their force base attack range. For her weapon, Binding Regan Leaf, this thing is real good. It accelerates specials and is effective against armor and cavalry foes. If Eirika has more than 25% HP, she gains plus 5 to all stats, reduces the damage from the foe's first attack by 30%, and when initiating, she'll neutralize effects that prevent her follow-up attacks. The stat boost and damage reduction will work on both phases, which is actually quite nice. That will make Brave Eirika a bit harder to take down in the enemy phase. Her strength is making player phase initiations though, and the partial follow-up effect will let her double any slower enemies. Eirika is super speedy, and with faster specials plus dual effectiveness, she can put pressure on those slower tanks. Her base attack is even above average, so you definitely don't want to mess around with her. Binding Regan Leaf is going to pair incredibly well with Eirika's unique B skill, Moonlight Bangle. If you missed the news, this year's second place winners also got an extra unique skill. For Eirika, she will get Kanto 2 and No Guard. Additionally, when her special triggers, she deals extra true damage equal to X% of the foe's defense stat. The X value is equal to the max special cooldown count of what Eirika is using times 10, and then you add plus 20 at the end. In general, Moonlight Bangle is like Lunar Blaze 2.0. It does take into account accelerated specials when calculating the max cooldown value. For example, Eirika has accelerated Luna, so it's going to be a 2 cooldown special. For the breakdown of special cooldown values, for 1 cooldown special, you're going to get to deal 30% of the foe's defense stat, that's just Moonbow. At 2 cooldown, you get to deal 40%. 3 cooldown is 50%, aka a Luna proc damage. 4 cooldown is going to be 60%, and then if you run Aether at 5 cooldown, you get another 70% of the foe's defense. To showcase how powerful Eirika is with Moonlight Bangle, she can take down the Lunatic Gatekeeper in the story. He has triangle advantage and a staggering 57 defense. When Luna procs, Eirika deals 50% of 57 plus 40% of 57, and that's going to total to 50 extra damage. The reason she doesn't deal the full 50 damage on this first fight is because Luna itself is not true damage, so she's making up for the extra negative damage. I can get Eirika to deal 1 base damage, so you can see that she's going to deal 50 extra damage on the special proc for a total of 51. Next, we got Eirika's new inheritable skill, Surge Sparrow. When initiating, unit gets plus 7 attack and speed during combat, and if their special triggers, then they restore HP equal to X% of the unit's max HP. This time, X is equal to the max special cooldown count value times 20, and then you add plus 10 at the end. So Surge Sparrow seems like a really powerful new offensive skill. However, it is only inheritable by melee units. That said, it only requires Swift Sparrow 2, so it's sort of like a split off from Swift Sparrow 3. It does grant 1 more attack than Swift Sparrow 3, so it's a better option, unless you do not want the healing effect. For example, Desperation users wouldn't want that, same for Wings of Mercy beacons. The fact that Surge Sparrow heals for 8% max HP amount is crazy good. It means you do not have to worry about overkill damage on low HP foes. For special count value breakdown, it does differ from Moonlight Bangle slightly. One special cooldown specials are the same. You get 30% max HP, 2 cooldown gets 50% or half health back. It only gets crazier from there, up to 70, 90, and then 100% HP healed. I feel like Surge Sparrow has some scary potential. You could run it on the Times Pulse accelerated special users with 2 cooldown specials. For example, Eirika with pre-charged regular Astra can immediately heal 30% of her HP, take a hit back, then heal another 30% afterwards. The next player phase, she just heals the damage from her first battle. For longer cooldown specials, obviously this can give a way to heal with the big damage dealers like Ignis, but what about Aether? It may seem like overkill to get 90 or 100% healing when you have something like Aether. However, Aether isn't healing for percentage max HP. If the foe has 1 HP left, Aether heals for nothing. Surge Sparrow can solve this issue, and you can definitely abuse this with HP stacking from things like blessings. Now, the downside is that if your special procs during the enemy phase, you get no healing. If you can time it right though, Surge Sparrow can easily turn a fight around. Healing for 50%, 70, or 90% of HP is insane. Perhaps you could run it with things like Special Spiral, dodge skills, or the fast berserk units with high base HP stats. Clearly, the healing part of Surge Sparrow is still going to be countered by Fatal Smoke though. Now in terms of playstyles, Eirika has a pretty simple player phase game plan. She initiates with a ton of attack and speed, potentially with the Menace skill also activating. With no follow-up, she can attack twice if she outspeeds the opponent, and with no guard, she will always charge Luna in one hit, and then take one counterattack. She has 30% damage reduction to survive, and then hit number 2 will proc Luna along with the extra damage from Moonlight Bangle. In addition, Eirika heals for half HP. After combat, she can retrieve a Kanto. Now, if she faces an armor cavalry foe, then she also deals extra damage to them. Very strong offensive unit. Really, you don't need to place any skills, and you can add the usual attack and speed increase in seals like attack and speed solo or blade session. With no guard, accelerated specials, and no follow-up, Eirika is also prime Gale Force material. She even has pretty high base attack to proc heavy blade, and attack and speed menace can debuff enemy attack as well. Of course, you won't get the extra damage from Moonlight Bangle, nor will you heal from Surge Sparrow, but you do have Kanto for extra movement after Gale Force. In terms of weaknesses, Eirika can be stopped. For example, she doesn't inflict guard, nor does she stop enemy follow-ups. That means units who quickly charge specials can potentially burst her down on the counterattack, even through her damage reduction. If Eirika doesn't kill in 2 hits, then she may also just drop pretty easily. Of course, if the enemy isn't dead after his special goes off, then, well, yikes. Now, for alternative skills, since Surge Sparrow is player phase only, you could swap to attack and speed catch or solo if you want the dual phase power. Obviously, you're going to lose the healing though. For C skills, Menace is great, but you can also use things like Fatal Smoke to prevent healing of any kind, or any of the other smoke debuffs. Now, since Binding Regan Leaf does grant stats and 30% damage reduction on first hits for both phases, I feel like Brave Eirika can also run Distant Counter just for fun. You could even use Noontime since she's going to always charge it on the counterattack, and Moonlight Bangle provides extra damage to heal off of. It actually would just be a mini Aether on a 1 cooldown that always charges. For the most part though, Brave Eirika is meant to abuse Surge Sparrow's percent max HP healing, so yeah, no real need to change anything. Overall, I'm personally very happy with how Brave Eirika turned out. She's for sure very strong, but like many offensive units, generally if you reach them first, they're a lot easier to handle. Our second unit is Brave Marth. Marth is dressed as his ancestor Henri, who is the founder of Altea. Apparently this image of Henri was from the art book called Fire Emblem The Complete, and that was released all the way back in 1996. Feels like we could have a mythic Henri in phase sometime if they really wanted to. Now, for stats, Marth is sitting pretty with 41 HP, 41 attack, 43 speed, 32 defense, and 25 resistance. He will also have attack and speed super boons to no surprise. Like Eirika, Marth is going to be our first Gen 6 melee infantry unit. He sits at 182 BST, but technically we already had someone reach this point. Legendary Female Corrin is Gen 5, but she is a trainee, so she had the extra stat boost for quite a while now. For normal Gen 5 melee infantry units, they were sitting around 176 to 177 BST. For old skills, Marth's going to come with Spurn 3, Dodge is basically a given for Speedy Sword infantry. He'll also come with even Tempest 3 for extra movement every other turn. For his weapon, Marth carries the Genesis Falchion. It's effective against dragons and accelerated specials. If Marth initiates or is within 2 spaces of his allies, he'll get plus 5 tall stats and up to 3 other effects based on the total bonuses of 3 of his allies. If they add up to 10 or more field buffs, Marth's going to get no follow-up 3. If it's 25 or more, Marth's going to get another plus 5 attack and restore 5 HP on hit. If you can reach over 60 field buffs, then he'll get Vantage, which will proc at any HP threshold. Okay, so big thing to know is that Genesis Falchion has no range when you calculate these bonus totals. Marth must be near one ally to proc the effect first, but once it's active, the buff tallying takes into account the 3 highest bonus totals from any ally on the map. Getting 60 field buffs on 3 allies may be tough, but Marth can provide them with his special. Genesis Falchion goes hand in hand with Shining Emblem, Marth's unique special. At the start of the turn, if Marth is within 2 spaces of an ally, he gains +6 to all stats for 1 turn, and he's going to give those same allies +6 attack. Now, if Shining Emblem procs in battle, Marth will gain bonus damage equal to 35% of his speed stat. Then, after combat, when Shining Emblem has triggered, Marth will pass the +6 field buffs to all of his allies on the field. Even if he falls in battles, allies will still get buffed up. So Shining Emblem is a bit nuts. It's a 2 cooldown special, but that goes down to 1 with Genesis Falchion. Before any fighting, Marth can give himself +6 to all stats and +6 attack to nearby allies. During combat, Marth's going to get a slightly weaker Regno Astra. After combat, Marth gives full +6 field buffs to his whole team. This is a souped up version of Legend of Marth's Fire Emblem special. The damage is even better, and Marth is insanely fast already. He was going to get an extra 11 speed from his weapon plus Shining Emblem's field buffs. 54 speed is going to equate to 18 damage, and Marth can get even faster than that. Before that happens though, the +6 attack buffs on his allies can get no follow-up to activate. That is very handy, and you just need to buff up 2 allies for that. Now, the full team buff effect is important because +6 to all stats for 3 allies is a total of 72 field buffs. This means once Shining Emblem goes off, Genesis Falchion is fully active, including Vantage. Vantage actually works out for Marth because he comes with Distant Pressure. This is technically an upgrade to Distant Counter, but it's more like a side grade to me. You get DC, but additionally, if you have more than 25% HP, you get a +5 speed boost. After combat, you take 5 recoil damage. This is basically DC plus a push skill. You can get the speed boost for both phases, which is nice, but recoil damage isn't really the best for long-term tanking. Now, to get Distant Pressure, you must have Distant Counter. This kinda sucks because you can't use Marth to fodder Distant Pressure and all 3 tiers of Spurn 3. Because Distant Pressure is an upgrade to Distant Counter, however, Marth will also come with Distant Counter, so you can still get DC plus Spurn 3, that's fine. In general, Distant Pressure can be good if you're not fighting tons of battles, but it's also just really good if you want that extra speed for some player phase moves as well. Now, how does Brave Marth put all of this together? He's pretty much using what all these speedy sword masters want. Super fast, dodge B skill, distant counter, and somewhat unique to Marth is the almost free +6 field buffs along with basically Regno Astra on a 1 cooldown. It's kind of disgusting how sturdy Marth ends up being. He pretty much always has +6 to all stats, he should have no follow-up at least, and he can initiate to proc Shining Emblem. If that occurs, Genesis Falchion is going to charge up, which means Marth can abuse Vantage with Distant Pressure. Even though he takes 5 recoil damage, the Vantage hit is going to go off first, and he's going to heal 5 HP. He may not have Shining Emblem recharge, but if he doubles, then he'll proc it anyway. Reminder that Marth has Spurn for dodge, so he'll get extra damage on Shining Emblem procs too. Now, the only thing you may want to add to his base kit is Time's Pulse. This would basically allow Marth to do double Shining Emblem procs on initiations. You could even use Surge Sparrow for healing, just like we talked about earlier. Of course, that's more of a pure player phase setup, but Marth can definitely pull off the mixed phase DC plus dodge build. He's sort of meant to be an all-around mixed phase unit. If you want to pass more buffs, you could use any buffing Sacred Seal. That could get you to the 25 total buff threshold, but you could also just have an ally do that. Brave Marth may be better off focusing on fighting, so you can run stat boosters like Speed and Res Form or Blade Session. Solo skills can work, but with Distant Counter you may want less positioning heavy skills. Mystic Boost isn't bad, but you can pretty much run anything here. If you wanted a non-DCA skill, you could use Bonus Doubler since Marth literally gives himself +6 to all stats. Bring Legendary Eliwood for bonus tripler. However, field buffs do have some counters which can mess Marth up. AoE panic effects can pretty much screw over Shining Emblem, fully buffing your whole team, including Marth himself. A Shara with her no panic ability would be very handy. Lulls are still common though. At least Genesis Falchion uses the buffs on Marth's allies, and there's no range for that. Just be sure for the enemy phase Marth is within 2 spaces of an ally. I mean, in general, you want at least 1 nearby ally since Shining Emblem's self buffs also depend on that. Overall, Brave Marth is a huge ball of stats with all the usual good Swordmaster stuff. He's got Distant Pressure as well, so range units will have to duke it out with him. And if Shining Emblem goes off, you may have to deal with a Vantage plus DC combo or a fully buffed up enemy team. Maybe not the most unique abilities, but Brave Marth just takes all the best aspects of this class type and smashes them together. Our third unit is Brave Marianne. She's in the Three Houses Dance Retire, although it's a bit more customized in Fae. There's a cipher card with Dance Marianne holding Blood Gang, but Marth's got the sword this round. Instead, Marianne will be our colorless unit, and she's a colorless infantry mage. For stats, Brave Marianne's gonna have 30 HP, 40 attack, 41 speed, 17 defense, and 35 resistance. She will also have attack and speed super boons, and is obviously another offensive unit. Not a lot of colorless mages in the game, so Brave Marianne will stand out just fine. She will have Gen 6 infantry mage BST with 171. This will also apply to the Brave Gatekeeper as well. The previous Gen 5 BST for infantry mages was around 165 to 166. For old skills, Brave Marianne's going to come with No Follow-Up 3 and Times Pulse. Both are pretty popular skills, with No Follow-Up allowing Marianne to double any slower units, and Times Pulse getting her special ready a little faster. That will be key to her unique playstyle. Marianne's weapon is actually quite simple but pretty effective. The Phantasm Tome will grant another +3 speed, putting her at a staggering 44 speed total. At the start of combat, if the foe has more than 50% HP, inflict -6 speed and res debuffs on them, neutralize their speed and res field buffs, and then when initiating, Marianne reduces the damage of their first attack by 70%. At its core, this is a stronger low speed and res weapon, but that 70% damage reduction is nasty. Marianne clearly wants to be initiating, and that's why she has no follow plus a whole bunch of attack and speed. Like with Legendary Claw, that amount of damage reduction can let Marianne survive some absolutely silly stuff. However, she won't have any damage reduction if you initiate first. Next, we have Brave Marianne's unique special, Requiem Dance. It's a 3 cooldown special. If Marianne initiates and charges this special up, after combat, grant another action to the ally with the highest HP within 2 spaces. This has a couple conditions. It can only refresh an ally once per turn. It can work on actual dancers. If multiple units fulfill these same conditions, it's not going to activate. As for the unit that is refreshed, they're inflicted with gravity, so they can only move 1 space. So Requiem Dance is Brave Marianne's standout skill. This special is weird. Marianne herself may not technically be a dancer, but this special will give Marianne that ability. It works similar to Gale Force, so it's only going to proc after combat. The good thing is that Requiem Dance will store its charge, so if there's no valid targets in range. Gale Force will proc at any time, while Requiem Dance essentially won't waste its chance. This is a good thing, and after getting to play around with Brave Marianne a bit, I can say it's definitely an important feature to have. There are a lot of question marks regarding this skill, and for good reason. For one, unlike Marth's Shining Emblem, Requiem Dance doesn't do anything for Marianne in combat. She basically has no damage special, which kinda sucks. It's also on 3 cooldown, and Marianne does not accelerate specials. Times Pulse will bring it down to 2, but you still need to charge up, and Guard or Pulse Smoke can't prevent that. From my testing so far, I can see the potential of Requiem Dance, but I do think it needs appropriate allies. For example, I feel like it's really powerful with an actual dancer on the team. Any repositioning movement assist skills can be good as well, and that's going to include warping abilities. This is because the gravity penalty does limit your options. Warping can get around this restriction, so skills like Wings of Mercy or Fly Mobility skills can allow Marianne and her danced ally to get creative. Peony is a really good example of what I think Brave Marianne wants. Peony can apply warping to the whole team, and she can dance Marianne, who can then Requiem Dance Peony. Before we continue, Marianne has one new inheritable skill, Attack and Speed Unity. If unit is within 2 spaces of an ally, grant +5 attack and speed, and if the unit has attack and speed penalties, grant a bonus to attack and speed equal to the current penalty times 2. Unity skills are generally more for a defensive formation since you need to stay near allies. However, the extra attack and speed can be great for units that just want to overpower the opponent. Being able to reverse speed buffs is very powerful because speed can change a matchup quite a bit, and this is a skill that can be decent on speedy units with distant or close counter weapons. For Marianne, she wants to be within 2 spaces of an ally to proc Requiem Dance, so this is a fine skill to keep. Now in general, Brave Marianne wants to be a player phase initiator so that she can proc Requiem Dance. The 70% damage reduction should allow Marianne to survive a crazy amount of counterattacks, and she has no follow-up to push through slower tanks. Her attack and speed is great, and Phantasm Tome tax on speed and res debuffs while ignoring the foe's speed and res buffs. Just being able to survive and double while being colorless will make Marianne quite annoying to tank. Then you got Requiem Dance. In theory, thanks to Times Pulse, it should always start with 2 cooldown on the player phase. As long as there's no guard or Marianne doesn't one-shot the opponent, you should charge Requiem Dance after combat. Its effect is powerful, but you need to have appropriate allies in position to take advantage of it. Like we mentioned, the 1 space gravity restriction hurts it, but you can get around it. Dancers are really strong to refresh with this ability, and honestly it feels like Marianne will cause trouble in a mode like Aether Raids. For example, she could be the one to run Wings of Mercy. Marianne could fly in next to her hurt ally, survive the initiation, refresh that ally, or maybe refresh a dancer who already warped in. If you're concerned about getting Requiem Dance to go off, then Flashing Blade can be used. It does suck not having extra damage for actual combat, but Marianne can set some things up no one else can. Now, to be clear, Special Spiral will not work with Requiem Dance. It does not affect specials that proc after combat, which is Gale Force and now this special. Even if it did, Marianne would need enough HP to survive another fight. That is kind of another issue in of itself. Imagine if Marianne could run Surge Sparrow. She could have been like Brave Eirika, use damage reduction to tank a hit, then heal a percent of her max HP back to keep on going. Can't do that, unfortunately. If you wanted to commit to a more combative build, you could just forget about Requiem Dance. Marianne may need Desperation to avoid later counterattacks, or you could use something like Special Spiral to recharge 2 cooldown specials like Glimmer. With a Menace skill and the usual offensive A skills and Sacred Seals, Brave Marianne would be another deadly mage you wouldn't want to let initiate first. It's a bit strange to not use Requiem Dance, but Marianne is splitting between being a strong initiator and being a pseudo dancer. I think an interesting thought would be to try and make Marianne herself a Wings of Mercy beacon. Use 70% damage reduction to attack into someone dangerous, maybe use her for extra recoil damage, and then you have the allies wipe next into Marianne. If you had a dancer, you could then dance Marianne, and she could use Requiem Dance to cause chaos. The only issue is taking further counterattacks. Overall, Brave Marianne is the hardest to judge in terms of effectiveness. She can be pretty scary if you build her like a traditional offensive mage, but Requiem Dance is a one-of-a-kind ability. It kinda takes a lot to play around it, but if you pull it off, then you can get some pretty wild results. Personally, I feel like they dialed things a bit too far back after Legendary Sigurd. Obviously, movement abilities are very powerful, but Marianne needs to invest a lot into making sure Requiem Dance goes off. If the enemy has guard, you're screwed, and while Flashing Blade can get around that, we're sacrificing 3 skill slots for no in-combat benefits for Marianne herself. There's also the fact that if her damage reduction gets nullified, then suddenly her own survivability comes into question. I think Brave Marianne is a very interesting unit that we'll see, but players need to have the right units and team to make Requiem Dance work. Last up is the Brave Gatekeeper. I'm probably going to refer to him as GK because he's just that cool. The Gatekeeper basically is the Reinhardt of Three Houses. He's an NPC character that won the player base over with his cheerful plot summaries whenever you visit him at the monastery. He's so popular, he's even in the background on the Garrick Mach Monastery stage in Smash Ultimate. As a unit, Brave Gatekeeper is a green infantry mage. He has 41 HP, 37 attack, 17 speed, 40 defense, and 36 resistance. He will have a defense super boon, and he's got Gen 6 BST just like Marianne. For old skills, GK will have Harsh Command Plus. Funny because he's just the sweetest guy around. For his weapon, Charging Horn, Gatekeeper adds another +3 defense for a total of 43 defense. He will also give his allies +5 attack and speed if they're within 3 rows or 3 columns centered on the Gatekeeper himself. Now, depending on the number of allies in that same area, GK gets a couple effects. If you just have 1 or more allies, you inflict attack and res debuffs, and that's going to scale up to 3 allies for a max of -6 attack and res. If you have 3 or more allies, then GK also prevents a follow-up attack. The interesting part is that if the Gatekeeper is within 2 spaces of a structure that can be destroyed by the enemy, he then treats it as if he has 3 allies in the area. Overall, Charging Horn is a neat little weapon. I feel like the attack and speed buff is a bit underplayed, but it's a huge area, and a +5 attack and speed boost is great for anyone. Now for the combative effects, Gatekeeper gets some standard tanking abilities, attack and res debuffs to take less damage and deal more damage back. Fallen prevention is also good, but there are ways to get around it, and GK is very slow, so he can't exactly win many speed battles. Still better than nothing. Not a bad weapon, and as long as he's near the team, you should get all the effects fairly easily. For his Detailed Report B skill, this is what will make Gatekeeper unique, probably for a very long time. Essentially, this is the Obstruct 4 upgrade we've been waiting for. No HP conditions or anything, Gatekeeper will prevent melee foes from moving through the adjacent spaces. He also prevents ranged foes from moving through spaces within 2 spaces of himself. Then, to top it off, foes cannot warp into any spaces within 4 spaces of the Gatekeeper. These effects will not affect enemies with the pass. So Detailed Report is super interesting. It has 0 in-combat effects, but Gatekeeper can lock down the area around him, and that is valuable for protecting allies behind him. The ranged obstruct effect is also very fun. While testing it out, I like how you can put allies right behind Gatekeeper and ranged foes can't snipe them anymore. That's been an issue for support units, and Gatekeeper can definitely use some support buffers. Since the obstruct area is 2 spaces for ranged foes, GK can also protect these spaces to the sides of him if he is diagonal to enemy positions. He's a very neat unit that will for sure be annoying. Speaking of which, the ability to stop warping is huge. We just discussed using warping for Brave Marianne, but Gatekeeper can put a stop to that completely. 4 spaces is his attack range, and as you've seen from the meta skills, it's a pretty noticeable size. Next, GK has 2 inheritable skills. First is Close Reversal. This is a straight upgrade to Close Counter. It's the same thing, ranged units can counterattack any melee foes, but now you also get +5 defense. Like with Distant Pressure, if you want Close Reversal, you need to have Close Counter too. GK will have Close Counter, but there's no reason not to use Close Reversal. There's no recoil damage on this skill, but it only gives you the defense boost for the enemy phase. Compared to Close Foil, you lose 5 attack, but you can counter dragons now. Honestly, Close Foil is still really good, and for following purposes, it only takes up 1 inheritance slot, whereas Close Reversal needs Close Counter there too. For his other skill, Gatekeeper introduces Joint Drive defense to the game. He grants +4 defense to allies within 2 spaces, and if the user is within 2 spaces of any ally, they will get the same boost themselves. This is the last Joint Drive skill, so now we have all 4 stat variants. Honestly surprised it took this long because Joint Drives are very versatile. You can slap them on any unit or build. So from getting to play with Gatekeeper, it's clear that he's not the typical combative unit. With Detailed Report, he is literally meant to obstruct enemy movement and stand in the way of the enemy. He almost certainly was meant for Aether raids, probably more for defense teams. He can stop Wings of Mercy Gilfresh chains and just prevent range units from moving around freely. I do feel like he fills that extra team slot pretty nicely since we just want him to stand his ground. Again, I do want to bring up the +5 attacking speed buff from Charging Horn. In Aether Raid defense teams, Gatekeeper is gonna basically give everyone those stats, and that can beg the question, what if we use 2 of him? +10 attack and speed for allies, you could just go full on defense to survive. Clearly his player phase is pretty weak, and while Close Reversal is nice, I kinda feel like a dual stance fits him better. Gatekeeper doesn't have guard, and good Gilfresh units can probably get around this, or probably get around his fall prevention. Honestly, not fighting back may also be more beneficial in some scenarios. Example with Brave Eirika earlier, she only procced Luna because Gatekeeper countered back. If you do go for a full-on defense build, you also may want some buffing skills to go with Charging Horn, Rally Bus, Distant Guard, Close Guard, or maybe Attack and Speed Bus to double up on the Attack and Speed boost. Stall Ploy is an option, but GK doesn't have the highest base HP, so if you use it, you're going to need to be aware of that. While going for full defense is fine, I also think we're going to see people pair Gatekeeper up with save army units. If you don't run Quicker Post, his killing power isn't that high, but if we want Detailed Report to just funnel the enemy team in, then a couple of save army units can do the fighting for the Gatekeeper. He is a prime target to take down, especially for Gilforce teams, so if you can protect him, then he can focus on obstructing movement. Now, while all of this is focused on Aether raids, you can definitely still use Gatekeeper as a normal close counter mage. He doesn't have to run Detailed Report, so you could swap that out for low attack and res or quicker posts, or you could run both. Getting the extra attack from close foil would have been nice, but I mean, that's a lot of investment for a unit who already has 2 close counter skills. I wish there was an easier way to get special charges for slow mages, but if you can get there, then obviously Bonfire Ignis are going to do some big damage. All in all, Brave Gatekeeper is a very fun unit. He's not going to go out and be an unkillable god that slaughters everyone like a certain unit, but he can be a very annoying threat you either need to get rid of first, or you have to deal with his obstructions. Can't help but wonder how his refine will look in 2 years. That's going to be it for this long banner breakdown. Coming next, I'll be talking about our Grand Hero Battle unit for the CYL banner, Peleus. He has some very interesting things to talk about, and some pretty decent stats too. Let me know your thoughts on our Choose Your Legends winners after you've tried them out yourselves. I do think everyone is pretty fun, and I want to keep testing Brave Marianne. She certainly is the strangest one here, but we'll see how players start using her. Maybe she'll be the true terror in our PvP modes. Thank you for watching. I'm going to go finish off my summons, and we'll be back to talk about Peleus. See you then.